Alright, it is 10:12 and I just got out of the trade, and of course it actually uptrended and got to the 65s now. We have 67 at the ask, but I don't know if it's going to actually happen, if anybody's going to actually buy at 67. This was a trade that took a little bit longer than usual, but I wanted to be more patient with it. And now it's making me look stupid because literally right after I got out at 10:11, it started to get to now the 66s by the 67 level, which is pretty impressive. But this thing was just taking a really long time. This was a morning panic bounce play higher low setup. So essentially, we had that morning panic. It drops from 72 as low as 60, and then it has a bounce. I wanted to trade it, but this one just didn't really look that nice. I didn't like how the only point where I could have really have been in this setup was at 64, unless I was being risky buying it when it was dropping here with the most amount of volume, and maybe in at 62. But I didn't like that. I could have been in at 64, but I didn't like the idea that maybe I'm in at 64, which is right above the trend line, as you can see I have here. And then it immediately does like a downtrend near the day low, and then it bounces. So then I'm in at 64. It dropped back to 61. Maybe in a situation like that, as long as it's showing that it's trying to hold the level and it's starting the uptrend, I could double my position and then I could sell into a bounce. It did get as high as 67, but being in at 64 would have been kind of hard to make anything significant off of it, because I mean there was a point where you could have sold at 65, but 64 to 65, that's not really that much in terms of percent difference. So I didn't really trade this one for that reason. But when it came back under and it also went under VWAP and it was showing that it could try to turn around, I did get in 15,000 shares at 63, and that was at 950. Right here at 950 is when I got in, right here at 63. And the idea is that it's going to hold the day low. Worst case scenario, I'm going to cut the trade if it's looking like it's going to break the day low and it's just still downtrending from where I bought. And then worst case scenario, I think I would have been out. I think I just guessed. I think I would be out at 54 or something like that, and that would be a $30 loss according to the $30 risk level that I'm trading. I did hold on to this for a pretty long time, and this one was pretty annoying. And yeah, it looks like nobody ever really took it as high as 67, but this one was kind of close. The 66 and a half. It was taking a very long time, and I did get out a big portion of my position, 2/3 at 958. So right here at 958, I did get out, and it wasn't at 64, it was 63 and a half. So I did get out somewhere around here at 958. I just didn't like how long it was taking. But then it started to get better because there was this big bidder that was originally at 62. So it kind of supported the trade, allowed it to potentially work more. And, I was holding on to it thinking, well, I'm not going to get out of the trade unless it looks like we're going to break that big seller, not big seller, the big bidder at 62, which eventually moved to the 63 level. And it never happened, but it was just taking way too long. I did get out ultimately this 5,000 shares. This one was actually at 64, and that was at 10:11, which was right here. I must have gone out somewhere in here, and I mean it did get out just a few seconds later, past that 64 level, as high as 66 and a half. But yeah, this was a trade. This was a morning panic bounce play higher low, and that's pretty much about it. I don't really see anything that interesting. VXIT isn't too bad because it looks like it might, if it has the momentum, be a setup if it breaks the 60 sub penny level. But the issue is that it doesn't have much volume. I don't really see anything else that's looking interesting, and I'll make an update later. Okay, it is 12:12 p.m. and this looks a bit weird because this is not my day trading screen. This is my long-term screen, which is what I normally use to look at things that are not day trade. So if I were to let's see, hide this one right here. This is the other side of the screen. It's very simple. It doesn't have anything crazy. I do have a super tiny position with QYLD that I've been holding. I haven't really done anything with it. But I did have one trade here just because I saw something that looks like something that I've traded before and I've seen a few times. And this is super speculative because it is. the QQQ, it's not really the best with technical analysis because anything can happen that can make this thing really emotional. But yeah, I traded this because I just saw a downtrending trend line. As you can see here, I drew this and it broke it. But I learned not to buy it as soon as it breaks the trend line because it might just consolidate a little, it might downtrend and then start to uptrend later. So again, I saw that trend line break and that's why I got in. I like how it did what I wanted it to do and that it broke past it, consolidated, downtrended, and then kind of held the bottom part of the trend line, and then it started to have some distance from this line, and then I had this uptrending trend line right here to kind of help me, have like a support level to play the trade off of. And in theory, I could still be holding it, but the thing is that I traded on this Schwab account and it's a PDT account, so it isn't something that I can sell in pieces. So I had to sell everything at once instead of small amounts, which is more ideal. But this was a trade that I took with QQQ, and the idea was that trendline break. And I did buy 6 shares at 12:08 p.m. and that was at 289.55. So 12:08 was right here is when I got in. That was right at 55. I got in right here at 12:08 right here when it was showing that it did get back to the trend line, but it kind of held itself together and it started to have distance from it. And I got in it and it was uptrending. It got as high as this 290 level, and I had two trend lines, one for the bottom on when I should cut it, and then one for the top, so that if it breaks above the high part of this move, then maybe it's extremely aggressive and I might sell into that. So the idea is that if it trades very wide and it breaks the bottom part, I'm out, but I missed out on so much. So I have this top part so that if it were to have broken well above it, I would sell into that. And yeah, I wasn't planning to really hold on this very long. This was a day trade. And I did get out ultimately 6 shares again because I'm not going to sell in pieces on a PDT account because that would wipe out how many day trades I have on this, which I rarely, if ever, trade on it. Um, I did sell 6 shares, and this was at 12.12 at 289.54. So, not 54, 84. Yeah, 12.12 was right here, and that was because it broke past the trend line. I even gave it a little bit of time to make sure that it's gonna really, break under it, and it did. And I got out right here in the 80s, 289, 80 something. I didn't trade very much, but I made a little bit, and this would have been something that would have been really profitable if I traded an option. But I'm gonna stay away from options because you can lose money so easily with an option. So that was just a speculative trade right there. It wasn't anything too crazy, but I just saw everything aligned the way I wanted it to be, and I had to take it for that reason. Can it continue the uptrend more? Sure, it can, but my setup was just going to be based off of the uptrending trend line once it was showing that it was starting to reverse. If I was ballsy, I'd still be holding it, and I would risk this trend line right here, and then maybe over a longer period of time, it can continue the uptrend even more. So yeah, that's the idea with that, and I'll make an update later. There really isn't anything in the OTC market that I'm interested in, and if I happen to trade something or I see something interesting, I'll make an update then. All right, it is 11:01 p.m. and I'm here to call it off. Overall, I'm going to be up just $2.73, which isn't very much. There wasn't anything humongous in the OTC markets, but I do want to note this. TXTM did do a low volume spike as high as the 70s, which is pretty impressive. And I've seen this happen a few times, but to be honest, I wasn't really that prepared for something like that. Maybe I could have stuck to my original trend line more, but hindsight is 2020. Just a little frustrated that I had that uptrend right after I sold because I held it for a pretty long time, like 21 minutes. But at least that shows that there is opportunity in holding setups longer, which has been something that I have been working on. And as for the other trade with QQQ, if I were to have been ballsy and traded according to this trend line, it did have a dip right here, which would have been kind of close actually to my entry, but it was just a very brief dip. Who knows how I would have traded something like this. It did continue the uptrend and it got as high as the 291s, and then it did eventually break it one more time, but then it wasn't able to regain itself at this point. You can see that it sold off much more towards the end of the day. I hope there's going to be more opportunities in the OTC markets. This one was pretty interesting. I don't know if I noted it or not, but it wasn't able to break the 170 level. It could have been something pretty cool, I think, and it's like a really massive high as well, but we didn't get anything with that one, and that's pretty much it. At least there was some kind of opportunity, and definitely still room for improvement. I could have even have tried the initial morning panic bounce play, although I didn't like the way that one was very much, but this was a pretty cool move, and ideally in a better market when there's more volume, I could be able to trade stuff like this.